Hi guys, like I said on Twitter, I would post a video with the reasoning behind me switching to a static start in the middle of the season. It all started, I guess, 2008. I caught a power clean, and I hadn't yet been wearing lifting shoes. I guess it was a full clean. I was going for a PR right after Indoor Nationals 2008, where I won and set the collegiate record, and I caught 190 kilos and dropped down into a full squat position, and my left ankle rolled over sideways. I had a pretty bad sprain, a tiny little fracture, and I'd been told that my bone geometry just changed a little tiny bit. Nothing major, but as a result, my ankle from time to time hurts. I taped it all 2013, but really it wasn't a major issue. I got around it. Obviously, I had a great year that year. Uh, Last year, I didn't feel it at all. I was able to go without tape or anything. But then this year, it started acting up around Prefontaine, um, and I didn't. I was just kind of lazy about treating it. I mean, I wouldn't say lazy, but I kind of just ignored the problem rather than accept it and address it right away. Um, Really, what it did to me is one of my big goals on my entry and my throw is to really, I call it getting out left in the back of the ring, and for a spinner, you try to push out left over your left foot to give your right leg enough time to come around and lead your upper body into the middle of the ring. And as a result of my ankle issue, I was instead just kind of dropping my hips back towards the center of the ring and kind of falling into the middle. You would see, I don't know, if you watch my Prefontaine video, you see my best throw go way down the left sector. And that's because of this falling in. I was just in good enough shape that I could get away with, I don't know, just hitting it pretty hard at the end and still throwing 21-37. But the next week, when I went to Rome, it really started acting up, and I it just really screwed up my entry and my timing. I went from 21-37 at Prefontaine to 20-60 at Rome, and I just felt like I couldn't get out over my left, and then also I couldn't drive into the middle of the ring. And I talked to Jordan Clark about it a lot. We were college training partners, and he suggested that I just tape it every single time I throw instead of messing around with it, and just give it the best chance it possibly could have to get better. And he also suggested that I do a less dramatic wind, because before, you guys would see me shift way over to my right leg, have a really dramatic wind, and then put all that pressure on my left foot, and that's all fine when my ankle doesn't hurt, because I I guess my ankle will support that extra pressure I get from shifting right to left, entering my throw. But just shortening my wind a little bit, put less pressure on it, and I worked on it up until USA's, and I was throwing, I don't know, I was still throwing with a wind at that point, still trying to make the best of it, and I basically just didn't have enough reps going into USA's to give the team a really good shot. I threw 20-79, which just doesn't cut it in USA shot putting, unfortunately. Um, but going in practicing, I was throwing 21 meters in practice. I just wasn't that confident with my new entry. Um, and then after USA's, I finally kind of I decided, yeah, I need to really change my entry for this year. And when Jordan, Tom Walsh, and I were all training, I guess Reese Hoffa also, we were all training in Mannheim, Germany for a week, and Jordan suggested that maybe I should try some static starts to really try to put a little less pressure on my ankle and just start building for next year. So, I mean, that's how it started. I did my first static start in Mannheim in, I guess, it was the beginning of July. It was right before Monaco, after Lausanne. And I shortened my wind a little bit in Monaco, but I hadn't yet committed to going to a static start in a meet because I'd only had probably 20 or 30 reps, only one or two practices with it. And then I came back to the U.S. after Monaco. I didn't throw that well. I mean, I like to be in 21 meter shape easily for Diamond League meets, and I just wasn't there. So I was unhappy with my meets in late June and then beginning of July. So I really went home and I put down some goals in my journal. One of them, I guess, was just work on the static start and really commit to it and just try to work on getting a consistent entry so that I would have a solid base going into the middle of the ring to really hit the shot, because I know how to hit a shot if I get into a good power position. So I went home. I started doing static starts. Pat Ebel here at Penn State thought it was a great idea. I mean, he'd been thinking about it without telling me, adjusting my wind for a while. And then I also sent some video to Dave Dumble, and he liked the idea also. Big props to Jordan Clark for coming up with it. And I just kind of committed to practicing with the static. And then once I got comfortable with the static start, I would move back to a little less dramatic wind. But really, I just worked on that static start. I worked it, I don't know, 4 times a week. I got probably a little over 100 throws a week. And probably, I don't know. I did a meet in Poland, a small meet with Tomasz Majewski and German Lauro. And I tried a slight wind, but at that point I hadn't added a wind back in practice. I probably should have thrown static. I probably would have thrown better. But really towards the middle to late August, I started getting really comfortable with the static start, just because I didn't have to worry about my ankle. I mean, it was still hurting, but I could just focus on really pushing out left, getting an active right leg out of the back, and then I could, instead of thinking about my ankle hurting, I could think about getting a good angle moving into the middle, getting a drive off my left foot, and I was hitting really consistent power positions and throwing, I don't know, pretty good distances for a static start. And just, I don't know, it gave me a little more confidence than I probably would have had with a wind this time of year, just because my ankle's not hurting anymore. It still is, but not anything near what it was in June. And I can get into a consistent power position, and I know how to hit a shot once I get there. So moving into this meet I had last Saturday, Pat Ebel and I decided that I was just going to do a static. So to get my meet speed, a lot of times I'll grab a 15-pound shot, and usually what I'll throw with a 15 in practice, I'll throw, I mean, around that. It gives me a pretty good idea where I am with a 16 in a meet. So I threw 22-15 or something like that with a 15 on Friday last week. And then I had my meet on Saturday, but I had to drive 3 hours that morning. But I really felt like the static gave me a nice, consistent entry and allowed me to be really aggressive in the middle. And one big thing that Dumble's always preached to me, and Pat noticed with my falling into the middle, is a lot of times I would be falling back on my finish instead of being able to rotate my right hip really hard under me, and staying level through the finish. You don't realize how important getting that right hip ahead in the middle is until you're not doing it. It cost me about a meter in the middle of the season, and I really think now, I wasn't, that was my first meet with the static start, so I wasn't completely comfortable, but I did have 3 21-meter throws, and I think that's a really good sign. It just, I'll do the static for the rest of the season, so I have a couple more meets. I'll go to Europe in 2 days. And I think the static gives me a really good base starting for next year. It just gets me back to the fundamentals, and it gives me, it's just, it gets me thinking about the right things instead of doing an entry that I'm extremely comfortable with. I mean, even now, I can go back to that long wind and still feel like it's my throw. But right now, for me, the static is just working better, and it's more of a tool right now to get me into a good power position, give me some meet confidence, and it'll give me a really good platform if I can throw 21 meters 4 more times this year with a static start. I know that I'll be in a good spot for next year. So, I mean, that's my thinking behind the static. A little long-winded, but I mean, I hope that answered your questions.